So as Ilya said, I'm a product manager here. You might be thinking, why is a product manager talking to us? What's this got to do with what we do? What are we going to learn from this? And so I'm going to keep you in suspense on that for the time being. And we're going to start with this. So this is actually an IKEA advert, which is not the point of the slide. But what it does is it illustrates kind of one of my slightly nightmare scenarios. I've only just noticed the kid in the background, though. And so this is like one of those parties that you go to where everyone is really cool and there's lots of new people, and they maybe don't all work in tech. So you're kind of getting outside of the bubble and you're kind of like, this is great. And it's not that I hate parties or meeting new people or fun, but inevitably the first question that anyone asks when you meet them, and it has actually happened tonight already, is, so what do you do? Much like that. And this is hard for me, because you kind of take a deep breath, and I know what the reaction is going to be. And I say, well, I'm a product manager. And you almost always get this kind of blank stare. Or you get, oh, so you're a project manager. And I'm just like, oh, no, that's not at all what I do. Or they follow up with this question of, so what do you actually do day to day? And so I kind of try things like, well, so maybe they don't understand what product is. I make useful websites and apps for people. But then you kind of have, they say, oh, so you're a developer, you're a designer. And you're kind of like, oh, no, that's not what I am either. I kind of just tell people what to make. And then I'm like, oh, no, I really don't tell people what to make, because although I've got manager in my job, I don't actually manage anybody in any conventional sense. And you're probably still thinking, well, how is this relevant? Does it really matter if these people at a party know what I do? And so these aren't the people I'm concerned about. But it doesn't really matter if they know what I do. I might have an awkward conversation and be a bit like, oh, it would have been really nice to have not been awkward. But it does matter that the people that I'm working with know what I do, because a big part of my job, actually, is to kind of help other people do their job better so that we can all succeed. And so in kind of the course of thinking about this talk, I've been collecting phrases or ways that you describe product managers. So I did what any kind of self-respecting internet-y person does, and went to Medium and typed in product management, what is a product manager? And you quickly realize that there's kind of tens or hundreds of articles, almost exclusively written by product managers, that are covering like what a product manager is, what they aren't, how they should be, how we can be better, what they definitely shouldn't be doing. And it quickly becomes clear that there's just many different ways of defining what it is that we do. And here at Made by Many, it's something that we have been kind of over the last year and a half. It's a relatively new job title here and role, so it's something we've been trying to define, especially where we work, where we're talking about clients, so we're not looking after a product directly ourselves in quite the same way. And so I also thought, okay, so Medium hasn't really helped me. Maybe I'll go and ask our developers here what they think I do. And actually, they did quite well. They didn't say anything that was offensive, and all of the things that they said were things that I consider part of my job. But there was still a huge variety of answers. And none of them were probably what I would say myself. So these are some of the things I have collected. Yeah, there's some good ones. I kind of agree in part with all of them to some degree. My personal favorite is janitor, not because it's demeaning, but because I actually think it gets to the core of what my day-to-day reality sometimes is. Yeah, you ever wondered who does data entry when you're like, we need to put all the content in this? It's probably a product manager somewhere. And I also found this, which I'll just let you absorb for a second. And I worry that this is true a lot of the time. I don't think I've ever really considered myself Superman, but there's definitely been moments where you feel like a headless chicken. And to kind of stop that feeling and to stop running around in circles and having people wonder what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, am I doing anything at all? There's three big questions that I really think this boils down to. So I think ultimately for me, product management boils down to, and this is the difference between a project manager and a product manager, what is the right product, why is that the right thing, and how do we make it happen? And I put these in a triangle of uncertainty, because they're not all independent questions that you can kind of answer simply. You can't answer any of these in isolation, and each of them is continually informing the other. And so as we find out more about kind of what something should be and why it should be, we're then moving on to thinking about how do we achieve that? But as we start making progress with how and getting into the details, we probably need to go back and revisit why we're doing it in the first place as we kind of figure out, well, should it behave in this way or that way? And so at Made by Many, the what we're always aiming for is the right product. This is our Venn diagram that we use extensively, and if you've ever seen anyone from Made by Many talk anywhere before, you've probably seen it. So we're aiming for that bit in the middle. There's this really slim sliver between what the customers need and what's right for the business. And that's kind of our sweet spot. But getting to that what, as I said, needs to be continually guided by the why and the how. And as I said, it's a triangle of ambiguity. And so part of my job, a very large part, is navigating that and helping other people to navigate it. And I kind of think of this as, for a product manager, the most important thing is being able to ask the right questions at the right time to the right people in order to figure out all of these things and make progress. So, big question mark. We always have kind of a starting point for reference. In this case, I'm going to sort of be assuming we're thinking about a product that already exists in some way, shape, or form. And so the one thing that helps to guide all of those questions for me is having a kind of a product vision in mind. And so for those of you that may not know kind of exactly what a product vision is and should be, it's something that looks into the future. They kind of tend to be big and bold, and they serve as inspiration and direction, and allude to the problem it is that we're trying to solve. So we like to refer to them a lot as our North Star, because that's where we're going, that's where we're headed. And we might be taking small steps to get there, but that's what we're trying to do. And for me, the absolute best ones as well help you make all of the decisions you need to make on that journey. And those are the sort of questions that can be everything from which feature to prioritize over another one, how they should be implemented, which things we should just kill because they're never going anywhere, what we should be tackling right now because it's going to have the most impact, and what we can, unlike what can wait for a next sprint or a future one. So I've just ranted about vision for a few minutes, but ultimately, this is an important one. I keep thinking I've got a clicker. Product managers are facilitators, not visionaries. And so I think if you're in a situation where a product manager is kind of acting like a product dictator and telling people to solve how to solve the problems, and not figuring it out with an awesome team, that for me is doing it really, really wrong. I believe the only way to make something right, to make that kind of right product that we're all aiming for, I hope, is by listening to a lot of people and working with everyone as a team. And that's something that is particularly relevant to this role of product management, because as a product manager, actually, my experience and knowledge kind of goes across a load of disciplines, but at a relatively shallow level. So, thinking about design, I might be able to sketch out a user journey, but I can't do the actual design of an interface and make it look amazing and really work for people. I can do some budgeting and understand business models, but I'm not an amazing finance whiz who's going to be able to solve all of your kind of future profit projections, for example. And I can sort of talk tech. Ilya laughs. But I definitely can't code anything unless you want some kind of like very 90s iframes. But for you, and why I want to talk to you really, is because your knowledge and your skills are far, far deeper than mine. So whereas I kind of touch a bit of everything, you actually are the experts. And I couldn't do my job wouldn't exist without you lot. And if I wasn't around, you might miss me. If I got hit by a bus, I'd hope you'd be slightly sad. But you would ultimately still be able to make something. I'm going to argue that I don't think it would necessarily be the right thing, but you could still build something. Because ultimately, even with this kind of amazing deep knowledge where you really know your stuff, when we're thinking about a product we're trying to make, we're actually all part of this much, much bigger team. And so down here, that's probably developers, designers, the people working directly and building stuff on a product team together. There's all sorts of people that might then be a stakeholder in what you're doing. So we might have to make friends with a finance person, your CEO or strategist, whoever kind of is that visionary, is probably going to turn up with some very strong opinions. We've got marketing, customer service, and of course, really importantly, the actual customers, the people we're building this thing for. And all of these people, in the same way that you have this depth knowledge about being developers and how to write code and how to make stuff, they all have the same level of depth of expertise as you do in their own particular fields. And me, I sit somewhere in the middle there, possibly slightly closer to a product team than anyone else. But that's kind of my happy place, mostly happy place. It's where I'm comfortable, because what I'm trying to do at every point in a project, when making a product, is kind of hear all of these people's opinions. I want to know what's motivating them, what they're thinking about, what they're worried about, what their goals are, where they want to be, and helping all of them to come together to build something that works for everyone. So for me, this is really a kind of a position of facilitation, negotiation, a bit of persuasion. It's far more about that than it is about leadership. And the big thing here is to really, my role here is to kind of stop any one of those parties becoming too loud or dominant. It's all about trying to balance all of these inputs to find something that's actually going to work for people. And it's not necessarily just people either. There's also kind of on top of this, you might have quantitative data, what your competitors are doing, changes in kind of broad technology landscapes. There's so many different things that have to be considered when we're aiming for the right product. And another way for me to describe this is really that there's a bunch of people that sit at a very high level who are thinking about that product vision in a long-term way. So they're thinking about where are we going to be in the next year, 3 years, 5 years. And then as developers, I think you probably often find yourselves right in the kind of now and the implementation and the particular feature that you're working on at any given moment. And so you're kind of looking at things from this very minute detail. And so a big part of what I try to do is translate between those two things to help people who are at that high level understand the problems that come when you're actually implementing their grand vision, and to help the people who are doing that implementation understand the why a lot better. And as I said, a big part of how I do this is by asking questions and forming hypotheses and trying to validate them. So here's the hypotheses for you. I think we can make better, more successful products by all thinking a little bit more like a product manager. I'm not going to try and convince anyone to become one, but I think there are some things in that kind of world and skill set that can help everyone to do their jobs better. You probably thought I was just going to talk to you about what a product manager is without asking anything, but there are a few ways I think we can all start to do this. And I think this is the first step. It's like, for me, the worst developers to work with are the ones that are just like, I'm really great at writing code, you're just going to give me stories, I'm going to write it in a really beautiful way, and I'll do it exactly as it's described, and it'll be done. That's painful. What I actually want is for people to kind of look at the backlog, look at the tasks, and consider user stories within that wider context of why are we doing this, who it's for, and how can I build this in a way that best serves them. Which kind of leads on to encouraging everyone to step away from their screens occasionally. It does happen. And I'm sure I'm also not the first person to stand up at a kind of dev conference and say, you should all go and meet your users. But I think that is one of the first steps. If you have the potential and you're able to go out and meet customers and speak to them directly, it can make it a lot easier for you to know how something should be built. Because there's nothing quite like sitting down with a user, seeing them use the thing that you've been working on for days, will be generous, and seeing that they struggle to use it, or that the loading time is unrealistic for the device they're using it on. And it's not just about customers either. As I said, they're kind of one part of this big force that brings a product into being. I'd also urge everyone to kind of step away from their computer within the office as well, whether it's in the kitchen, and just talk to the person who you have no idea what their job is. Find out what their concerns are. And then the next time someone comes down and be like, we must build this feature now, you might have a better understanding of where they're coming from and be able to solve that in a better way. Can't work out if this is dangerous or not. I think a lot of people also think product managers are in charge of the process, and we kind of say this is how it should be done. But especially for those of us that aren't from a tech background, it's not always clear to us how we can best help and to make work more efficiently. And ultimately, no matter how good we are at listening to our customers, listening to stakeholders, if we don't get something out the door, it's kind of all work for nothing. And so I think from that perspective, I think product managers are really kind of pragmatists. There are some things obviously we want to do and make sure happen, but ultimately you're the experts on things like estimation and exactly how long it takes to build something, or the benefits of one way of doing a feature versus another. And I really want to encourage everyone to feel that you can own that process you're working with to make it more efficient and suit the way you work and let you do better work. Ultimately, it kind of all boils down to me as the ask more questions. So there was the 3 questions at the beginning, and I think those are things we can all use in whatever we're doing to really guide and make the work that we're doing better. So there's stuff you can ask yourself. So it's, what are we really trying to achieve with building this thing? Who is it for? How's it going to be used? How can it help us to get to that vision? And there are things to ask people around you as well. So whether it's colleagues or clients or customers, using that kind of curiosity to sniff out their motivations and fears and develop a better understanding of their point of view can be really helpful when an unexpected kind of curveball flies in. And that's what I really want to leave you with, is that I think there has been, I hear of tension between product managers and developers, and I think it's largely because you don't feel enough ownership, or a product manager is holding on to stuff too much. And actually, this is all a shared responsibility. And that's shared across the team. Because the only way that we can navigate the kind of uncertainty of getting to the right thing and of trying to make products that are right for the business and for the customer is to find out what we don't know, what we need to ask, to find the next answer that's going to help us release the next thing that's going to get a little bit closer to where we're going. Thank you.